Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah. I like to talk about books in my basement. I took an unintentional break. I got Hives. I quit my job. And I have so many books to talk about that I need to do this in a bunch of videos. So this is the first. This one I have themed badass ladies, but there's all kinds of awesome characters in these books, but there's about 4 books here I want to talk about, 2 novellas and 2 novels. So at the top of the list, let's talk about Necrobane by Daniel M. Ford. This is fantastic. This was the sequel to The Warden. I have but one complaint about this book, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But this follows The Warden, and in The Warden, our main character, Alice, is stationed at a small countryside sort of border town to become the warden. And the warden is sort of the sheriff, the judge, the jury, all wrapped up in one. She takes care of the people. She also has some healing surgery capabilities, so she is kind of like the catch-all for important tasks. And in the first book, we see her mostly settle down and get used to the people because she is from nobility, and these are not noble people. These are just people who are doing their best with what they've got on the border, the edge of the kingdom. And she learns to get on with the people and adapt to that lifestyle. And at the end of the first book, there is a big cliffhanger. She accidentally does a big whoopsie, and this book follows her as she attempts to right that whoopsie. And this was really good. This has a lot more action than the first book. It's a little less cozy. We see her in a lot of fight scenes. She gets together a little band. She's got her love interest and the half-orc fella, Tum and Rhea, I think were their names. I cannot remember for sure. And they go out to fix her big whoopsie that she triggered at the end of book 1. Now, my one big complaint about this is that the 60% conflict was so contrived, I wanted to scream. This is a very short book. I was blazing through it, and that conflict happened, and I just had to stop and stare angrily into the distance. It all had to do with a field surgery. Someone was injured. She was fixing them. She was pulling a piece of a claw out of their shoulder. And somehow everyone just expects her not to spill a single drop of blood in a field surgery, out in the wild, with a knife and little else. Yes, it had big ramifications for the event. But the way they treated her, calling her selfish, calling her, reckless, and all this stuff because of one drop of blood, it was contrived. I really didn't care for that. But overall, outside of that, it was fantastic. There is a teeth monster. It made me think of the show was called Candle Cove, but there was this horror show that was on a few years ago. And there was a little boy made of teeth. The teeth monster made me think of that. It was very creepy, and the way he described the teeth monster moving, it was just... by the end of it, I very much agreed with one of the characters where they were like, I don't want to see, talk, or hear about teeth ever again, because it was very fun. Well done, fun, and horrifying. Another badass lady novel, kind of a similar idea. This is Murder on the Lamplight Express by Morgan Stang. This is the sequel to Murder at Spindle Manor, which won SBFBO this year, so hooray! I really loved that book when I read it last year, and I also loved this one. And these 2 books both follow a huntress this is a sort of steampunk world, and she hunts monsters, and she hunts these beasts at the behest of the Council of Nobles. They are these great celestial wardens, shepherds they call themselves, who guide humanity. We don't know very, very much about them. We see one at the end of Murder at Spindle Manor, and we get to see one again at the end of this. And this one takes the idea of the murder on a train sort of story, and she gives it her own spin. My favorite thing about this is you will immediately think of, what was it called? Not Murder on the Nile, but the Hercule Poirot book that takes place on a train. It's very familiar feeling to that, and halfway through there is a direct reference, and then it goes kind of off the rails. One of my favorite things, that was an unintentional pun. Look at me. One of my favorite things about Morgenstern is that the books kind of start just a little slow. The humor is very dry, but by the end of it, you're sitting there with this bewildered look and you're like, what just happened? I loved it all. It was fantastic. Her endings don't miss for me, and I am very excited to go back to her backlog and pick up some of her other books in different series. The ending of this also set up a very interesting world, like a larger world than what we've seen so far, and I'm extremely excited to read the next ones when she puts those out. I will for sure be picking those up as soon as possible. This first novella I'm going to talk about has a badass lady in it, and she is the point of view character for the first couple chapters, but you know, the point of view moves. I'm not going to tell you why, it's probably obvious, but the point of view moves. But I'm throwing it in because I really enjoyed this. I read this today. That's Ruins of Smoke by, and I'm not going to pronounce his name because I know I'll do it wrong. There you go. Mr. Silva is what I'm going to say. This is the prequel novella to the Smoke Smiths books at this point. I am extremely excited to read the Smoke Smiths, and I saw this prequel novella, and I love novellas. I wish I could explain to you the depth of my love of novellas, especially prequel ones. I plan on doing a video soon just recommending prequel novellas that I've read and loved. This will be in that video. This was great. He really stuck the landing on this. One of my favorite things, there is a little bit of artwork in this. You can see some of the beasts. So this is following a city that is being attacked by these demonic beings, the Deceivers forces. And we follow 3 different points of view as they deal or participate in this siege on the city. The first point of view, I believe it's pronounced Jeha, J-E-H-A. She is I've already forgotten the name. I read this morning, and she's a member of the Red Sun Army, and they use a type of magic called the Essence. Not gonna lie, it gave me very Force vibes, like from Star Wars. I dig it. I love it. And she can fly, and her sisters are interconnected in this big web. They're a big unit. She's like a monk, I think, in this sort of order. And they are trying to push back these forces while getting to the capital, to their king, who is the font of the Essence. He is the avatar of the Essence. She has chosen him, and he is her avatar. And it follows her for a few chapters as she gets to the palace, and we start to see maybe where these Deceivers forces are coming from, the rifts that are being opened, who's doing it, and why. We jump into another perspective. I'm not going to spoil that one very much, but it's very dark. We start to see maybe the conflict. I really like the point of view. I like getting different points of view with different perspectives, we'll say. It sets up for a very cool idea where we can kind of see both sides. And my favorite part is these actual smoke riders, I think is what they were called. And another point of view we got, so we actually got 4 point of views. I forgot one. They inhale the smoke that is given to them through the essence and by burning a special herb, and it turns them into these undead. So these are the good guys. These are the point of views. It turns them into these skeletal undeads, and they have these powers, and they can summon smoky weapons. It's so cool. It was just a fascinating idea that they would burn this herb, inhale it. It basically burns away their body, and then from there they but they have this enhanced strength, enhanced stamina. They can summon smoky weapons, and they can fight. They pay for it later with, a lot of crippling like pain and recovery time, but it's just a fascinating story. I'm very excited to see where the actual story goes. Like the longer novels, I have it on Kindle, so I will definitely be picking it up and reading it when I get a chance. But I do love a good prequel novella. If anybody has any recommendations for any, please hit me up. I have like 2 more downloaded to read because short things are really working for me right now, where I'm getting used to my new... Did I mention I quit my job? Yeah, I'm getting used to a new routine, so short things are really working for me right now. And the final thing I want to talk about is another novella, and that is Unexploded Remnants by Elaine Gallagher, I think is her name. This was fun. This is a science fiction action story about a woman named Alice, who is the last human in the cosmos, and she is at a market and finds what she describes as looking like a lava lamp. And she realizes when she picks it up, there's a lot more to it than that, and she buys it, and immediately she is surrounded by these alien forces who want to capture her and her new lava lamp friend. and take her off and use it. She comes to find out that within the lava lamp is a sentient consciousness that was attached to it. It is the war master of a large weapon, of a large force, of a group that wiped itself and its opposing faction out in a genocidal war hundreds, thousands of years ago, from what I could gather. But for that AI, that sentient consciousness in the war machine, it has only been like 16 days because he has been dormant. They've turned him on, turned him off, different people have had him, and she talks to him and manages to get him to open up, and it's her traveling across the cosmos through these large gates. They're like warp gates. All I could think was Babylon 5 style gates. She gets dumped in different worlds as she tries to find her way back to his home world to figure out a way to help him and possibly unanchor his consciousness from this weapon. Now, this book is like 100 pages long. This comes out next month. My biggest complaint and what really took the rating down for me on this, I did really like it, but this really needed to be a longer book. I don't hardly ever say that about novellas in a detrimental way. Like, I would love to see a lot of novellas turn into longer length novels, but I don't usually find it a flaw, like it suffers from the fact that it's too short. This one might have suffered from it. She falls through all these gateways and she jumps through all these gates and portals and stuff, but we only get glimpses of them. She doesn't actually describe them very much, so it kind of ended up being a confusing mess of she fell through a portal, she fell through a portal, she fell through a portal. And I was pulled out to the point where I was asking questions like, what's she gonna do about food? What if she has to take a poo? Does she need a nap? Did that give her, like, doesn't this make you kind of nauseous? Like, it's, I'm asking mundane questions because I'm no longer hooked into the story until eating it up. So this one I was less excited about, like a 3.5, but I really enjoyed the idea behind it, and I think also the themes that she was trying to explore would have been better explored in a larger novel. So if you're looking for something with an interesting idea, an interesting world, this cover is stunning. It's very short, easy read. I would recommend it. It just, I think it needs more, and I'm really hoping that she writes a longer length novel set in this world. There's a very interesting premise of the archive, and that's the reason Alice is alive. She is the last human because she has stumbled upon the archive when humanity was still around, and the archive is like this big alien library group that collects articles and artifacts and knowledge and preserves it, and she is one of those things they tried to help and ended up preserving, and she works with them and for them. I don't know, it was interesting. I would definitely read more, but this one I think we needed more of it. So that's the first of my recent reads. There's 4 books in that. I think we're gonna have a graphic novel and manga one, and then I am working on a book to lump in with some others. But I will be back hopefully soon with another video and with less hives. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. I will talk to you again soon. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you read. And if you have any good novellas. I like science fiction and fantasy, obviously, but even good romance novellas. I really like dual point of view romance. I have figured out I don't do good with single point of view. But anything like that, hit me up down below. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for watching, y'all. Bye.